down to dunk.
And I'm down to dunk. I'm down to dunk.
This is J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lindy Waters, and I'm down to dunk. I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kenneth Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk.
We say this is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
Cracklin Oat Bran?
Have you had Cracklin Oat Bran?
No,
No. Okay.
but it's healthy.
Are you a big oat brand guy?
I'm a big Oat Bran guy.
Okay.
I think I would switch it with Fruity Pebbles.
Okay, eat faster. Don't put as much in the bowl.
If you have a gallon of milk, I can also take home.
You don't have milk at home?
One cinnamon toast.
Okay.
Crunch. Yeah. Cereal is great. Yeah.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Today, I have a special podcast for you guys. I'm going to have a lot of different guests that are going to pop on here with me to discuss Thunder Pelicans. Former Thunder beat writer Fred Katz is going to join us. Dakhil from Bleacher Report and the Athletic NBA show is going to join us. Antonio Daniels from the Pelicans broadcast. We've got Mark Schindler. We have Trey Kerby of No Dunks joining us. Got Dave Dufour. It's going to be a splendid time. Ben Golliver, Tyler Parker. Boy, got a spectacular lineup for you guys. I give just a little snippet from each one of these guys and their thoughts on the series. I guess it's not even a series. Thoughts on the game. Holy smokes. We're still learning how to talk about the play-in. Is fun. Thanks so much for listening and for tuning in. If you're not tuned in on YouTube, all of these will be on YouTube as well. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow along. We'll still have our regular Wednesday pod with Al tomorrow. But I thought I would drop something extra special since the Thunder made the play-in. So hope you guys enjoy the podcast. I've got Fred Katz with me. And Fred has covered the Thunder. He currently covers the Knicks. He also is just somebody who covers the life of Russell Westbrook in so many different ways. Fred, thanks for coming on the show, man. Fred's also just one of my just beloved friends as well. I'm glad to have you on, man.
I just am always happy when I get to talk to you. It's just wonderful.
I feel the same. I feel the exact same. So the Thunder have this game Wednesday night. It's the biggest game that they've had in a couple of years. And really, this is Shea's
Since James Harden blocked Lou Dort.
Poor Dort. Poor Lou Dort. He'd done so many good things in that game, and then he's going to forever be entrenched in Thunder lore as the guy who got blocked at the end of Game 7 by James Harden. It's actually James Harden's only career block, if you can believe that. I'm just kidding.
I actually, for a second, I kind of did. But then I remembered he also blocked. Yeah, no, that was it.
Do you have any other James Harden blocks in your memory?
I mean, I feel like most of Harden's blocks are probably swipes. They're probably like there's a guard flying into the lane and Harden happens to be there and he just it's like been switched on to big who's posting him up and he turns around as the guy's going up. Harden like swipes down and gets him. I feel like that's probably most of his blocks. I don't know how many threes he's blocked.
Yeah.
I don't know how many threes of 30-point scorers he's blocked.
If you told me that was the only time he's ever blocked a three, I would believe you. I would definitely believe you. So this is Shea's first time, like on the main stage as the star, as the guy he's the marquee player on this team. What are your expectations for him as he plays in this game Wednesday?
My expectations are that it doesn't look like his first time because it kind of isn't. Like he played in a competitive series with the Clippers. And one of the things, like I remember talking to, I can name drop him because he's a celeb on this pod and he's the best. I remember after the Thunder made the Paul George trade, I was talking to Michele Barrow and I was just telling him, I was like, because I loved Shea his rookie year. And I was telling him, I was like, you are going to be obsessed with Shea. He is just so up your alley. Like he's so up he's so up Mikele's alley, right? As just the player, like even before he was just like a star. And the reason why, and the thing I kept saying to him was, man, in that playoff series, he was so composed for a rookie. He was so good as like secondary playmaker. Okay, a blitz is coming to somebody and I'm the outlet and I'm going downhill. I'm making the right pass. I'm swinging to the corner. My expectations for Shea are that he's going to look like Shea. This is what he does. He plays at his own pace. New Orleans is a defense where, you know, you can force it into your pace. I don't think he's going to be deterred by Jonas Valanciunas. I think Shea is going to look like the guy who we'll expect, right?
Mm-hmm. And if you're New Orleans, obviously you have Herb Jones as like the weapon to defend him. But like, what other tactics would you use? I was rewatching the last game between them that Brandon Ingram actually played in, just to kind of refresh what that could look like. And New Orleans did not pay attention to Lou Dort or Josh Giddey on the perimeter at all. They basically, and they don't have this guy in the game, which I think is also kind of a big factor. Jose Alvarado, who started that game, was kind of in like the dunker spot on defense. Like he's just standing down there with, I think he was supposed to be defending Giddey, and Giddey's just standing out on the perimeter. And they're just like, yeah, we don't care. Like those guys can beat us. We're just gonna be there at the rim to just frustrate Shea. I expect to see more of the same. Do you?
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. And I'm sure the Thunder are going to try all these different creative ways to try to screen Herb Jones. But the thing about Herb Jones is that he's actually one of the few perimeter defenders who is great at getting around screens, who I wouldn't really describe as slippery. He's so powerful going through screens. Like his feet move with such power when he goes through screens. He is unbelievably difficult to screen, especially when he starts picking you up full court. There are a lot of times where he'll just say screw it and he'll start picking somebody up 70 feet from the basket. And obviously the goal is just to get the ball out of the primary ball handler's hands. And somebody, in this case, a teammate of Shea's will come over and try to screen Herb Jones in the backcourt just to give him a little bit of space, and it just won't work. Like once he's got his momentum built up, it's almost like he's a driver, and he's very difficult to get off the ball. So their ability to get him off the ball is going to be really important. I also think Giddey's playmaking is going to be huge. We talk about Shea as an outlet in the Clippers series. Well, okay, they stick Herb Jones to Shea, and let's say he is just out of his mind defensively, because often he is. And let's say Shea gets off to a little bit of a funky start, or even just like feels like this is a lot, they're trapping, whatever, needs to get off the ball. And if they're not really sticking to Giddey on the perimeter, well, now Giddey has a way downhill. And he is a very good creator when he's going downhill. So I think that's going to be a massive component for the Thunder.
Yeah, I think Josh gets overlooked in almost every way by the fan base and by the league at large, because he's taken such a huge leap this year. And because he's such an unusual player, I think maybe it's just hard for people to acknowledge it, because he's just such a strange player. There's just not like these 6'8" point guards that are crazy rebounders, have incredible vision, but like his main offensive weapon is like a floater, like there's just, those guys just don't really exist. And so I think it's hard for people to talk about, but he is going to be a huge factor. And I think it's the balance for him, because they're going to give him opportunities to be the guy to score. And so I'm just so curious to see how he balances like the playmaking, because whenever he has the team kind of churning is when they're at their best, whenever he's kind of leading the group and leading the offense. But if he gets tunnel vision with his scoring, he can kind of rip the Thunder out of that rhythm. And so to me, that's one of like the big factors for me on if the Thunder can win, is like, can they get into the offense that they want to get into? And you're right, he's such a huge part of that.
Yeah. So is Jalen Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jalen Williams is going to be huge on that too. Just like the secondary scoring, because the Pelicans are not going to be able to shut down everything. To me, The big things are, I feel like I kind of know what Shea is going to give you. And the
Yeah.
question is, how difficult of a job is Herb Jones going to make it on him? And what kind of team defense are they going to cut off Shea's release valves? And in that sense, like, what will Jalen, J-Dub, what will he give you?
Mhm.
Man, I don't know how you talk about the Thunder. Like, just Jalen Williams is all over the place. It's just,
Yeah. You get used to saying J Dub, or you say Dub. That's what Mark calls him, is Dub. I just don't feel like
It's a-
I feel-
Dub sounds.
I feel so.
I'm not into a nickname of a nickname.
Yeah, I feel so uncool when I say it that I'll say it sometimes, and then afterwards I'll be like, God, that feels gross, and then I'll go back and say something different because I'm like, man, I'm not cool enough to be able to just say Dub. I don't know. I feel weird about it.
One Jalen Williams takes charges, and the other Jalen Williams leads the charge. And that's how we'll differentiate them. Yeah, I think his ability to attack the dribble is going to be massive. Finishing around the rim is going to be massive. I love him as a finisher. I've said this to you before, but I'll say it on a podcast. I love. It's really rare to see a rookie such a composed finisher.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, you see guys who are good finishers, and it's like, you know, Kyrie Irving has every single move that you could ever possibly think of and more, right, around the rim. And that's why he is an iconic finisher and as good of a finisher around the rim amongst point guards as we've ever seen.
Yep.
But J-Dub is just like, I am going to go off the correct foot and I'm going to scoop it in. And if I'm wide open and it's basically a layup line, I'm going to look body language exactly the same as if there is Jonas Valanciunas in my face.
Mhm.
And I think his strength allows him to do that. I think the other thing that's just going to be massively important on the other side is if Valanciunas is going to kill them on the offensive boards, because that will be huge. Because as good as the Thunder have been, you know, basically over the last 3 months or so, they're still not a good defensive rebounding team.
Yeah.
They still don't have a lot of size down low, and they can scrap for loose balls, but those rebounds that come to the paint, and I think New Orleans is going to make a concerted effort to try to get to the rim a lot against them, which means that a lot of rebounds are going to be coming in the paint and not necessarily
Mhm.
long rebounds.
Yep.
If Valanciunas gets 8 offensive rebounds in this game, which is a ton, but also like kind of possible, and he's just putting them back, or they're getting threes off of second chance opportunities. Like, even during this stretch since January 1st, where the Thunder have been great. January 1st, Thunder are 25-21, and the Pelicans are like 19-27 or something like that. And these are proper versions of those teams. Like, I think those are the records we should go off of when we evaluate these two teams. But the Thunder are 28th in defensive rebound rate over this time.
Yeah.
And Valanciunas is capable of being a monster.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think that's something to watch too.
Yeah, I wonder how much they'll play him, because he's averaged just 22 minutes a game against the Thunder, and the Thunder have found ways to get him off the court. And I think, like, certainly, like, they just don't allow him to post up, because they just, when the ball hits his hands, they swarm him, and he doesn't really do well when that happens. And so, is he going to go all out just to be basically a rebounder and just pick up the garbage for the Pelicans in this game? I think it'll be interesting. And if he is, then they can probably keep him out there longer. But traditionally, they've kind of pulled him, and I don't think he's closed games for the Pelicans against the Thunder, just because the Thunder are very unconventional. And they'll play. I would not be surprised. I think we are going to see it, a lineup where Josh Giddey is the biggest guy on the court for them for probably some pretty long stretches of this game, just to see if they can get the other team to kind of adjust to them. And that's something that Mark does that, like, Billy and Scott wouldn't do, is that and some of this is just due to the fact that they don't have a real big man on the team, but they'll go unconventional and other teams adjust to them. With the Thunder in the past, it feels like it's been the other way around.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's definitely true. That's why I bring up the offensive rebounding. Like, I think Thunder fans can probably relate to it on the other side, where it's like, they had that similar sort of predicament with Steven Adams in certain playoff series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was Steven Adams when they played against, you know, a 5-out team, and Adams wasn't as great in space, you know, later, not like 2014 Steven Adams, but 2019 Steven Adams, you know, like wasn't as great in space, but he could make up for it if he was getting every single offensive rebound. And I think it's going to be a similar sort of thing for New Orleans. How do you think they're going to guard Brandon Ingram? Because that's going to be the huge one. It's going to be like if Brandon Ingram is better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which in general, I don't think he is, but in any given game, he of course can be, then you've got something. And if the Thunder try to swarm Ingram, one thing with Ingram, he's just become a wonderful passer.
I was going to say,
I just think he's such a good passer. I actually was covering a Knicks Pelicans game, which was completely meaningless to the Knicks and meant something to the Pelicans, and the Pelicans did not play well and kept it way too close and barely won that game. But I was covering Knicks Pelicans game, the second to last game of the season. And there's a play where Ingram just gets doubled, and he threw like a hook pass, like a Kareem hook shot, but it was a pass, and it was just a straight line drive to the corner, to a corner three shooter right into Trey Murphy's chest. And the dude just makes these absolutely fabulous passes to all the right spots. He's really good at reading the game now. And Murphy, by the way, has been great for the Pelicans lately. He's been going off, and that's going to be something for them to watch out for too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Fred, let's get you out of here. Who's going to win this game? Who do you think is going to win this game?
I got the Thunder. I think Thunder are going to win.
Okay.
I think Thunder are going to win. I think they have the better team. Like I said, since January 1st, I mean, the Pelicans at Zion, we're having a different conversation, but
yeah, without a doubt,
you know, but the Pelicans are a sub 500 team as they stand, and the Thunder, I think 25 and 21, like they've got a plus 3.5 net rating since January 1st, something like that. Like that's a good team. That's anything can happen in one game, but that's a good team. I think we might see Thunder Timberwolves, and then we can have a really interesting discussion about what the heck is going to happen with Rudy Gobert and and are the Thunder able to play Rudy Gobert off, or is Rudy Gobert just going to kill them because they don't have the size? Like that could be really fun if we got to see that.
Just going to actually kill his teammates on the bench, you know. And I mean, literally anything can happen in that kind of matchup. Go follow Fred on Twitter at Fred Katz. Go read all of his stuff on The Athletic. If you're interested in the Knicks, which are a very interesting team, a very, very fun team, go read all of Fred's stuff. You guys have read Fred's stuff. Come on now. Go read his stuff at The Athletic. Fred, thanks so much for coming on.
Always thrilled to.
All right, I've got my buddy Mo Dakhil on the pod to talk Thunder Pels play-in game. Mo, how's it going, man?
It's going great. I mean, as we just discussed, I have no ability to sleep in. But besides that, everything is awesome. It's just I wake up, it feels like at the crack of dawn on nights. I feel like I should be able to sleep a little later.
So this is Shai's first time as quote-unquote the man in a situation like this. What are your expectations for Shai as he plays in this playing game Wednesday night?
I think the same as it's been all regular season. You know, it's funny. It's when I think about these play-in games, and we consider them playoff games or at least postseason games, they're almost like your approach to it should be regular season like.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, they just finished playing Sunday. Scouting report, everything should be normal, the way you would approach a normal game. So I think Shai should be just fine in that regard. There's not going to be added pressure. I don't think New Orleans is going to have had, well, they're not. They're simply by math. They're not going to have multiple days to scheme for him. And how are we going to defend him in this many different ways? And we're going to show him 20 different looks. Nope. They're going to be doing what they did throughout the regular season on Shai. And I think that's going to be the continuation of it. So I don't feel like the pressure is up and the stakes are higher, but I don't feel like he has to change his game in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that because you've worked in these kind of situations before, not specifically a play-in situation, but like a win or go home situation before. Like how would you, as a part of like the coaching staff, like approach this game? Like, how would you look at it? Like what perspective would you look at it with?
I mean, this is going to be probably a reference to continue the theme of Mo is old. A Rocky 3 line where Apollo's training Balboa and Balboa's like tomorrow, and Apollo Creed's just besides himself and he just screams, "There is no tomorrow." And I feel like that's kind of the attitude you have to have as a coaching staff. You're throwing everything out at the wall. Whatever your craziest idea is, like, you're going to approach it like the regular season. You're going to stay with your system. But in the game, if you want to have stuff in your back pocket, because it's, hey, can we play Shea an extra 5 minutes than we normally do? Well, yeah, because if we lose, he's got all off season to recover. And it's and if we win, yes, we have another game in 2 days, but we have another game, and that's the important aspect of it. So you have to approach it in that there is no tomorrow. We have to be willing to stretch ourselves if we have to. We have to be willing to be creative and do things maybe we wouldn't normally do in those instances in the regular season or even in early part of a playoff series. But in this case right here, you don't have a choice.
So if you're the Thunder, who are you putting on Brandon Ingram? How are you defending Ingram? Because I think we obviously have like the Shea side of it, and I think Herb Jones is going to be the primary defender for him, and they're going to throw a ton of stuff at Shea. But if you're the Thunder, how do you defend Brandon Ingram?
I think you just start with Lou Dort. I think, Dort is one of those top level perimeter defenders that we've known for a long time with OKC, right? Like, we've known quite a bit with them, and I think that's one of those things you start. You're probably Jalen Williams on him and a Clara Jalen at some point on him a little bit, give him a little more muscle, and then you're going to throw different matchups at him in terms of different looks. You're going to throw double teams from time to time, good digs where, the defender the help defender sort of just shows that he's there and then recovers back to his man. Like, you're going to have to show Ingram a lot of things. And the truth is, Ingram can have a high scoring game, but he can't have that on just a few number of shots. It's got to be an inefficient game for Ingram. And I think that's really what you're trying to do if you're the Thunder in terms of slowing him down and making sure he's locked up.
Coaching edge. Who would you give the coaching edge to in this matchup?
It's actually two really good young coaches. I don't think people first off, and Andrew, this is a good moment here for you. You get to correct me on something here.
Yes, let's go.
Mark Dagnall?
Dagnall.
See, that's but that's just so you guys understand. Most people can't say his name properly. Dagnall. Yeah. And I'll probably forget it, honestly, because again, Mo is old, a few more times, and Andrew's going to have to keep reminding me. But between Dagnall and Willie Green, I think you have some really good young coaches.
Yeah.
In this matchup. Like, this is awesome. I think there's a lot of stuff that he's done that has been very clever defensively. Seth Partnow talks about it a ton, where they don't switch until late in the clock. They don't constantly switch pick and rolls until later in the defensive possession, which throws a lot of teams off mid possession. It's like, oh, okay, they're whatever. They're hedging, going, you're not ready for this. Those are the kinds of things that he does. It's really interesting. I think Willie Green has done a phenomenal job in terms of just keeping his team composed. Think about the last 2 seasons of the New Orleans Pelicans. Forget all the injuries. What did they start last year? Like 2-13, 2-19 at one point or something. I can't remember off the top of my head because I'm old. But they started terribly, made the play-in tournament, and gave Phoenix a massive run in the playoffs. This year started out really well, was relatively healthy, a lot of injuries, lost a lot of games, dropped a lot, looked like they might even be completely out of it, and then lifted themselves back up. Like, his ability to keep this team together and composed in the hardest of times is really impressive, especially for a young coach. And I think those are the things that it's going to be just fun to watch these two teams go at it.
Mm-hmm. What are the biggest factors for each team, like outside of SGA and BI?
Yeah, I think it's, the shooting of the supporting cast. I don't think either of these teams are great 3-point shooting teams, but it's whoever. I hate to say it in terms of like this is a make or miss league or all of that and things like that. But whoever's shooting it well from three is probably going to win this game. And I feel like and I don't mean necessarily Shea, Ingram, McCollum. I don't mean it to be mainly your main stars. It's going to be the supporting cast because the main stars either are going to get theirs or they're going to be clogged up defensively and need to make the kickouts.
Yeah.
It's can the other guys make the shots? Can Herb Jones make the shots? Can Jalen Williams make the shots? It's going to be those guys, Josh Giddey, who's going to play an important role as a playmaker, but they're going to leave him defensively. He's got to hit some shots. Like it's going to come down to the role players shooting.
Yeah, without a doubt. Mo, who's going to win this game Wednesday? What's your prediction?
Okay. I should pander. I'm on the Down to Dunk podcast. I should pander and say Oklahoma City. I think this is going to be a really tight game.
Yeah.
But just think New Orleans edges this one out,
Sure.
And I think I'm excited for this. I could see both. Like, it's a toss-up at the end of the day, but you're forcing me to pick, which, screw you, Andrew. But I think I think I'm going to go New Orleans just because I think, a little bit more experience. CJ, I mean, Jonas Valanciunas has played the most play-in games in the small play-in tournament history, So I think there's just a level of experience with this team that's just a touch better. But I love that OKC is in this. And I would love for them to win it and continue to play. Playing games that matter at the end of March and April is extremely important for all of these young guys. It's not just a throwaway game like some of these other teams have had. This is games that matter and have consequences, and I love it for them.
Go follow Mo on Twitter at Dakhil_NBA. And then listen to him on the Athletic NBA show like 1,000 times a week. You hear him on Basketball Buds, Nerder She Wrote, and the Daily Ding. Mo, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me, Andrew.
I'd like to welcome Antonio Daniels, who is the color commentator for the New Orleans Pelicans, and honestly, a Thunder legend. If you're a Thunder fan, Antonio Daniels is a Thunder legend to you. AD, thanks for coming on the show, man.
For sure. Thanks for having me, Andrew. I wonder what you want to talk about today. I wonder.
Listen, the Pelicans have been through this. They've been through the play-in, and just in your opinion, from someone who's watched all these games closely and knows the players, and you've played the game before. You haven't necessarily been a part of a play-in game, but how different is it for the Pelicans, and how much confidence do they have just having the experience of the play-in compared to the Thunder?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you, Andrew. I think the experience last year makes a difference, but also the teams that you played last year aren't built like the teams that you're playing this year. Think about the teams that you played last year in the San Antonio Spurs. At this time, they were 14 games under 500.
Yeah.
The team that you played in the Clippers to actually get into the play-in playoffs, they had no Paul George.
Right.
You're playing against teams right now with the potential to play against teams that are whole, healthy, ready, and star-driven, young and hungry. Yep. So yeah, I would love to sit there and say, what, the fact that they played in the play-in last year is going to make a huge difference in the result of this game. I don't feel that way though, because I feel like this play-in scenario and situation is completely different than last year's.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And part of that is you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander playing against you Wednesday night. And this is really his first time as the man. He's definitely had playoff experience. With the Clippers in that rookie season, he played really well. He averaged 13 points per game. And then with that Chris Paul-led Thunder team, he was the leading scorer all season. Now he wasn't the leading scorer during the playoffs, but still good experience for him. But this is his first time as the man, as a guy who is he's definitely going to make all NBA, whether that be first team or second team. We'll find out in the coming days, but this is his first time. What are your expectations for Shai as he heads into this game Wednesday?
The same thing that I've come to expect from SGA all year long.
Yeah.
He has been amazing. And what you have right now in OKC is a culture of young players that are outplaying their expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you have a culture of players that are outplaying their expectation, you're doing something amazing, especially when you're doing it organically.
Yeah.
Sam Presti, I don't know if there's a better shot caller in the league that drafts better, that finds diamonds in the rough. You can go all the way back to the Kevin Durant's and the Russell Westbrooks and the James Hardens and the Serge Ibaka's and the Steven Adams, go on and on. But now when you look at guys like Jalen Williams, both Jalen Williams,
yep,
Giddey, those kind of guys, like they make a huge difference. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I know he wasn't drafted by Sam Presti, but there's a reason that Doc Rivers did not want to part ways for him to acquire Paul George. There's a reason that he was the holdup. And now you see that reason. This young man is, I say all the time, he is the best player in this league that casual fans won't know.
Yeah.
Like if you're just a casual and all you know is stars of this league and superstars of this league, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, man, what can he not do? His ability to get to that rim, his ability to draw fouls, to step out, knock down shots, to keep you off balance. That young man is amazing. He is amazing in what he can do with that basketball on the floor.
Yeah. And obviously New Orleans has one of the better defenders to cover Shai. And they're not just going to use Herb. They're going to use lots of different ways to cover Shai. How do you expect them to defend them? Kind of the last time that we saw them play, they basically just said, hey, we're gonna sell out to stop Shai. If Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, God bless you, but you're going to sit there on the perimeter and just be all on your lonesome because we're going to sell out to stop this guy. Do you expect more of the same?
Well, let's think about it, though. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the 4 games versus the Pels averaged 34 points a game. 34 points a game, and 1/3 of those points are coming from the foul line.
Yeah.
Because he's averaging 11 made free throws per game. So, I mean, it's easier. It's so difficult. The hardest thing to stop in this league is a guy with an insane skill set and freedom.
Yeah.
SGA has it all. He has all that. The ability to put the ball on the floor, the ability to stop and pop from anywhere, to play with pace. But then he also has the freedom to shoot the ball 5, 6, 7 times down in a row. So, yeah, you can say you're going to sell out against a guy. That's easier said than done. Because if that was the case, then stars wouldn't be stars. Yeah. This young man is averaging 30 points a game, and I have him as the league's most improved player. A lot of people are saying Lauri Markkanen. My vote would go to SGA. So I think it's one thing to say you're going to sell out against him. It's another thing to actually say that and be able to execute it, though. Easier said than done.
Mm-hmm. So Brandon Ingram's going to be a problem for the Thunder Wednesday. He's probably not a most improved candidate, but like the passing stuff that he's displayed this season, just kind of the leadership of him being the best player for a majority of the season for them has definitely been good experience for him. If you're trying to stop Brandon Ingram, is it just as simple as like use Lou Dort, or does he struggle against length? Like what would be like the best way to defend Ingram in this matchup?
Again, I think that's one of those situations similar to SGA that's easier said than done. Because right now, Brandon Ingram is not playing the best basketball of the season. He's playing the best basketball of his career.
Yeah.
Right now. Because in the totality of everything he's doing, he is touching and impacting every statistical category.
Yep.
Everyone. And like you just mentioned, Andrew, it's not just the scoring. He's facilitating. He's passing the ball better, right? 2 triple-doubles this season. And this is the first time he triple-doubled in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Rebounding. Initiating the offense. And that's one thing Willie Green has done. He's moving BI all over the place, similar to what he did with Zion. It's tough to focus on a guy when one time down, he's initiating the offense. Next time down, he's the screener in the screener row. Next time down, he's using the screener row. Next time down is the isolation situation at 15 feet on the right side. Next time down is the isolation situation at 15 feet for the middle of the floor. So one thing that Willie's done a great job of is moving BI all around and make it difficult for teams to tilt the floor against him, make it difficult for teams to load up against him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when they do, he's done a great job of finding his teammates.
Yeah. You've seen Willie Green up close all season. Mark Dagnall has established himself as one of the better young coaches in the league this year. Would you give either of them the coaching edge? That's a hard one for me to kind of parse out.
Well, the only reason I would give it to Willie is because he's been in this situation before.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, I think it's different for players, last year's playoff scenario versus this year's playoff scenario. But if you have any postseason success or any postseason experience, that pays dividends.
Yeah.
And right now, what Willie Green has that Mark doesn't is postseason experience. Whether that be last year in the play-in scenario versus San Antonio Spurs, then the LA Clippers, or that 6 games that he had as far as preparation and experience is concerned versus preparing this New Orleans Pelicans team versus the Phoenix Suns.
Mm-hmm. What are the other factors in your mind that are going to be the biggest thing going into this game outside of like Ingram and SGA?
I think it's the others. And I say that respectfully when I say others. I mean the role players, the guys like Trey Murphy, guys like Herb Jones, guys like CJ McCollum, and on the Pale side. And on the Thunder side, guys like Jalen Williams, guys like Josh Giddey, guys like Isaiah Joe, those kind of guys. Because those are the guys that give SGA freedom. You know, those are the guys that give Brandon Ingram freedom. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. When you do load up on SGA, that's why you go out and get Isaiah Joe, a 40-45% three-point shooter. You know, when you load up on Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy has been a 50, 40, 90 guy throughout the course of the season, which is incredible. It's incredible the jump that Trey Murphy has made. Herb Jones right now is playing the best basketball of his young career as well. So when you decide to sell out against these guys, it's going to come down to the other guys making plays.
Mm-hmm. Okay, AD, who's your pick for Wednesday night? Who are you picking?
From home court advantage purposes, I'm going with, and also with the success of this season. Even though, honestly, if there's one thing that I've learned is the season series doesn't play into it a lot. I remember when I was in OKC years back, and you swept the Portland Trailblazers, right, throughout the course of the regular season to the tune that Portland actually set guys out to avoid OKC, right? Anthony Simons goes out and has a 40-point game. They end up meeting first round and then defeating the OKC Thunder. So as much as I would love to take into consideration the fact that the Pelicans are 3-1 versus the OKC Thunder this year, I can't. I can't. I think it's going to be a very, very close game because all these games seem to come down to the stretch. Every time these two teams seem to play over the last 2 seasons, it seems to come down to the final possession, final 2 or 3 possessions. And if that's the case, because of the postseason experience, you know who I'm going with, Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm going with the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah. Antonio, we miss you in Oklahoma. We miss
Thank you.
I think that you're a part of, honestly, one of my favorite broadcasts. I watch a lot of NBA basketball season on League Pass, and anytime I have the choice to watch the Pelicans broadcast from watching a Pelicans game, always tuning in to your broadcast. It is a sensational experience. So so happy for you and your success there. You've done such a good job. And
I tell you this, Andrew. I'm blessed to be with an awesome team.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Myers and Jen Hale, just in our truck as a whole. They have made it a blessing. Bally Sports New Orleans has made it a blessing to work in that environment. I love it. Thank you, brother. I appreciate your blessed words, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for joining the show. And you know, we'll hear you on the broadcast on Wednesday night. Thanks, AD.
No, we aren't doing the game.
We're not doing it at all.
No, we're not allowed to do play-in. Yep.
So what's your setup?
No local broadcaster doing play-in.
What's your
I'll
setup?
be at home. I'm at home now. I will be at home with my wife and my children watching this game. Same way, screaming at the TV, just like you will be.
I love it. Antonio, thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
For sure. Appreciate you, brother.
I've got my guy, Mark Schindler, here to walk us through maybe some nitty-gritty things about this Thunder Pelicans matchup. Mark, what's up, man?
Andrew, not a whole ton. It's been a busy start to the week, and it's we're 2 days in, so it's one of those things, but we're making it work. How's everything on your end, man?
It's good. I am not covering multiple leagues. I'm only covering one, and so that's enough for me. And so I know that covering multiple leagues is just tough. Let's talk about Shai, because this is a big moment for him. He's the man on this team. He's going to be the focal point. He's going to be the the reason that the New Orleans Pelicans changed their entire defensive approach. What do you expect from Shea in this matchup?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I don't want to like counter it too much. I think I'm really confident in what Shea's going to be able to do in this matchup. I think where my bigger questions are going to be is what the questions have been all year. You know, how well does everybody else on the roster shoot? Like, I think that is the biggest question I have about this team is, you know, as currently constructed as a playoff team. Like, I know Shea's going to get to his spots. I know that the Pelicans are probably going to put a lot of ball pressure on him. They're going to try every number of defenders on him because they have so many players who are all capable of spending some time on him. I'd imagine Herb Jones gets the primary assignment, and you know they do a lot of stuff trying to muck up the passing lanes. But I mean, I just think Shea's that good that I expect him to get to his spots and still get to the rim, get into the paint with ease. How the Pelicans try and counter with who they play at the 5 or what kind of lineups to put out is going to be really interesting to watch. But I'm pretty confident in Shea being the best player in this game.
So Brandon Ingram is going to be a problem for the Thunder. He's got crazy length. He has become like a very good number 1 option for this team. He's playing. I just spoke with Antonio Daniels, and he said that Brandon's playing the best basketball of his career.
I'd agree.
It's hard to disagree with that. How would you defend him? Like, what are the strategies to bother Brandon Ingram?
Honestly, the way that this team likes to play defense, I think, is a great way to try and maybe not bother, but to me, the way to with how Brandon's been playing lately is to just try and make it so he has to beat you. Which that sounds very stupid. Like, okay, you know, just let Brandon get 40, but I think it's almost the same things with Shea. Like, you can't. He's so good of a passer now, the way that he's been able to pick things apart. Like, I think you're still going to want to mix up ball pressure on him and not just play the same thing all the time, but switching, preventing him from getting downhill, really being aggressive and trying to maybe bait him into some passing windows. Like, I know this team isn't crazy aggressive off the ball. Like, normally a lot of it's just trying to keep everything in front and force difficult shots, which I think is for what they are going up against, I think that's the right idea. But I think, yeah, I mean, they're going to need Lou Dort to have a really good game against BI and everybody, of course. But I think Lou having a big game would be really important.
Yeah. Who would you say would be more important in this game, Jalen Williams or Josh Giddey for the Thunder?
Oh, that's a good question. I kind of want to say Jalen Williams. I mean, it's easy to toggle between the two because they're both what they can do is important. But I think with how much more often Josh is like probably initiating the offense, I think it's almost more important for Jalen to have a good game, like having him be somebody who is shooting well off the ball, who's collapsing on the defense when they are sinking in, because he's so good, especially if teams sag off him. He's really good at making them pay for it. Mm-hmm. Just having somebody who can keep the second side of the defense honest, I think, is really important with the way that I think the Pelicans are going to try and play this. So I would say J-Dub.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be important for him to be aggressive. And I'm just curious. We've seen it some over the last couple of weeks because the Thunder still needed to win games to make the play-in. But I'm just so curious to see who's up for the challenge with this OKC team. Like we know for sure that like Shea and Lou Dort aren't going to be scared of the moment. Like who else steps up? Like who else is not afraid of this moment? I think it's going to be a really interesting kind of test case for this Thunder team. And it doesn't determine really anything at all. I mean, if you remember back in 2012, James Harden was really bad in the NBA Finals for the Thunder, and then they traded him, and he came back, and he was 20 times better than he was in the previous season. So it's not like a determining factor or anything. Who are the role players? You mentioned Lou Dort for the Thunder. What other role players are you like putting in as like pretty big factors in determining the outcome of this game?
Yeah. other role players I think will have a factor. I think Isaiah Joe is going to be really important, kind of just like we mentioned in terms of having the shooting, having the ability to really be active off the ball and force teams and make the Pelicans have to play honestly. I think he'll be important. I think having other Jalen Williams will be important as well for what he's been able to open up as somebody who can be active on the short roll and play a couple of different defensive coverages. Just having somebody who can make it tougher for Jonas Valanciunas to stay on court. I think that will be really important, or just like trying to make them have to play differently. Those are two guys that I would probably pinpoint right away.
Yeah. And then for the Pelicans, obviously like CJ McCollum's shooting is going to be a huge factor in this one for them to get the victory. And then how much can they actually play Valanciunas? Because the Thunder are going to be weird and small and fast. And, you would think, I think most fans that don't watch the Thunder would just think, oh, well, you just throw Jonas like 3 or 4 post-ups and just let him get going. And the Thunder just don't allow that. They don't allow those things to happen. They will swarm him and get the ball out of his hands. I think he had the last game that he played against the Thunder, I think he had 1 post-up. They just don't get him the ball in the post, mostly just because the defense doesn't allow it. How much do you think Jonas will matter in this game? And then, like, how, if you're the Pelicans, is he somebody that you want to be out there for more than the 22 minutes that he played on average against this Thunder team?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question, especially too, because like it's very much a double-edged sword, and it's okay if they do wind up playing pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
Can they make the Pelicans pay for it? And on the other hand, too, like, okay, well, what if the Pelicans really battered them on the inside, which is something that they haven't. I don't want to say they've gone away from it lately, but without Zion, it hasn't been quite the pinnacle of what they were doing as much as it was earlier in the year. And then looking on the other side too, like I think Trey Murphy III is probably the biggest guy I'm looking at in this, because he has just he's blossomed in March into April as like a secondary star. Star is probably a little bit too blunt, but like somebody who can really handle it's not just him shooting threes. Like there's a lot more going on with it. So again, there's this Pelicans team, just like it's been a roller coaster season, but I remain so interested in what they look like and how they're going to play.
Yeah. It's so weird. I think playoff experience definitely matters. And I think play-in experience matters too. Jonas Valanciunas has played in the most play-in games of anybody, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I just am so curious. I think that it helps that the Pelicans have been here, but then again, it's just one game. Anything can happen in one game. How much do you think play-in experience actually matters in this circumstance?
That's a good question. I think it's hard to gauge because this is our 3rd year of the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say that it doesn't really matter, because based on my track record, it doesn't seem like it's been something incredibly important. But also, like, that's just not something I'm super worried about with this Thunder team. Like, they get up for everybody. I think that's been one of my favorite parts in watching them. They always have it. Like, obviously, in terms of effort, I should say, not necessarily in terms of, what the actual on-court product is going to be, but I'm not too worried about that with the Thunder.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's time to make your pick, Mark Schindler. Who wins this game Wednesday night?
I'm taking the Pelicans. I just think the Pelicans have been playing a lot better recently. Obviously, they had a slump right around and slightly before the trade deadline, but they've looked pretty darn good the last couple of weeks compared to what they've looked like previously. And the Thunder, well, I wouldn't say they've been bad. They have certainly slumped in a way that I don't feel great about. Like, obviously, I don't want to count them out. Shea is awesome. He's been awesome. I think a lot of guys on this roster are popping, but I just don't really think this is their year to make noise in the playoffs yet.
I think it's going to be very close. I think this is going to come down to the last 5 minutes of the game, and it's going to be very, very interesting. Mark, you can listen to Mark on the Daily Ding. He's actually going to be recapping this game live on YouTube for the Daily Ding on Wednesday night. So please go check that out. Anything else that you're working on, Mark, that you can plug?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. You can find me on Twitter at MG_Schindler. I have tons of stuff coming out covering the WNBA. All together, in my pin tweet, I had a profile on Haley Jones, who just went 6th overall last night to the Atlanta Dream, and she is a phenomenal person and player, and I think you should read up on her. So yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Go check out Mark's work. He is very smart and knows what he's talking about almost all the time. So please go check out Mark's work, and thanks so much for coming on, man.
Appreciate it.
I've got my guy Trey Kerby from No Dunks on the show. Trey, what's up, man?
Andrew, I'm so excited. We got basketball games that actually matter, but more importantly, we're getting to chat again.
I know. This is beautiful. What a beautiful moment. I want to get first your thoughts on just the overall looks of this Thunder team, because like you're kind of an expert in the way the guys are looking. Just your thoughts on the looks of this young Thunder team.
Well, one of my proudest calls of all time. It was the year was 2020, and I went on some fashion podcast, and they asked me for the best dressed player in the NBA, and I said Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
This was 2020, so this was foresight. And look at the guy's still one of the coolest looking dudes from a style standpoint, from a style of play standpoint, and just everything he does exudes swagger. And that to me has filtered on down through the rest of the Thunder team. You don't only have to be a good basketball player to fit in on OKC. You got to have some chill vibes.
Yeah, and some great hair. Like that, they've got to be top tier in the hair game.
They're super funky. Absolutely. Yeah. That's why Muscala had to go. They said, "Get out of here, Mike."
That guy's got
standard. Get out. But yeah, I mean, Shai changes up his look quite a bit. You can identify both Jalen Williams quite easily now, and they both are bringing their own style to the team. Isaiah Joe bringing it off the bench as well. The Thunder, they got a great look, and it's going to be exciting to see him here in the play-in game.
Yeah. So this is Shai's first kind of moment as the man for the Thunder. He obviously played in the playoffs with the Thunder, but that was Chris Paul's team. He played for the Clippers, but he was just kind of a role player on that team. Now we get to see Shai on the main stage. What are your expectations for him on Wednesday night?
Well, I expect him to have at least 30 points. That will be a disappointment to me if he is sub 30. And honestly, I'm just hoping that he plays as well as everybody's expecting, because that's what we're anticipating. He's done it all year long. He's hit big shots when it really, really matters. And now he's playing in a legitimate elimination game. Yeah. So the pressure is the most he's seen as an NBA player thus far. And I think we're all looking forward to see if he will rise to the expectations. And I'm hoping exceed expectations, because when he's on fire and when he's really in a rhythm, there are a few guys who are more fun to watch than him.
Mm-hmm. So how would you defend him? I know that the Pelicans have Herb Jones, and that's a pretty nice weapon to have when you're trying to defend Shai. But I kind of anticipate that they're going to sell out to defend him and leave guys like Dort and Giddey all alone on the perimeter. Do you expect to see kind of more of the same, or what's your expectation there?
That to me makes the most sense as well. I mean, when you look at the Thunder, there's one player who can beat you on any given night, and it's SGA. So take the ball out of his hands, likely starting with Herb Jones on him. I think Najee Marshall will probably get a little bit of time as well, but those longer defenders who are able to stick with Shai athletically as well are going to be important. Then you get the ball out of his hands, and you're forcing shooters like Dort and Giddey to maybe beat you or to make the next play to anybody else who isn't Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So there will be opportunities for the role guys on the Thunder, I'm thinking. And it's a big spotlight for them. So we'll see how they respond on the road.
Which role players? Obviously, you have like the Brandon Ingram SGA components. Like those are the stars of the teams. But which role players are you anticipating kind of stepping up into this moment for either the Thunder or the Pelicans?
For the Pelicans, I wouldn't be surprised to see a big game from Jonas Valanciunas. I think he's the only player in league history who's played in every single play-in tournament. He snuck in with the Grizzlies back in the bubble. And in one of these play-in games, the stats are very hard to track down. In one of these games, he had a 20 rebound game. And that to me is where he could make an impact against the Thunder, is crushing it on the offensive glass, extending the possessions for the Pelicans and just helping them really win the possession game. But for the Thunder, I think Isaiah Joe is kind of the guy, just because he can get super hot from three. If he has a game where he hits 5 or 6 3-pointers, that puts the Pelicans in a tough position because they're a team that just doesn't take a whole bunch of 3-pointers. So maybe a surprise 20 points from Isaiah Joe turns the tide for OKC.
Who needs to have the bigger night for the Thunder? Josh Giddey or Jalen Williams?
I think they're both going to have similar opportunities. I think as long as one of them has a good game, OKC is going to be in position to make plays. I would assume it'll be Jalen Williams. He seems to be a little bit more of a willing shooter, and there are just going to be times when those looks are available to both him and Giddey. Giddey probably will function more as a playmaker in those sort of scenarios where he's the one that's asked to make the next play. He'll be willing to do that, but I don't know. I assume Jalen would probably have a bigger scoring impact than Giddey would.
Mm-hmm. Is there a coaching edge? Like, does having experience in the play-in give Willie Green a coaching edge in this one? Does play-in experience matter, I guess is my question.
Well, yes, I think so, but only because the Pelicans really have additional playoff experience as well, right? They won through the play-in tournament last year. They got to the playoffs. CJ McCollum has obviously been there from his time with the Blazers. Valanciunas had a whole bunch of runs with the Raptors back in the day. So they have legitimate playoff experience, not to mention they did win out of the play-in tournament last year. But there's also an advantage, I think, for OKC in that there's no expectations for them. They have already exceeded expectations, so they can just go out, no pressure, and hopefully perform to their capabilities.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think there could be an element of we're kind of like too inexperienced to know what this should feel like kind of thing. And I think to me, you kind of hope that they go in a little loose into this game and not put too much pressure on them and you want them to scout the game, obviously, but you don't want them to dive in like way too deep on this and like get in these young guys' heads. Because they have very little experience. I mean, outside of Dort and Shea, I mean, this is new for all these guys. And so I'm just so curious to see how they respond, especially for Mark. I mean, I think people leave Mark out of the conversation too much when it comes to guys that need experience. I mean, he's a guy who he's not coached a game that's this important in his entire life, been the head coach of a team that has been in like a win or go home situation. So I'm so curious to see what Mark does in this game and how like composed he stays in this one.
I think it's a huge developmental game for OKC going forward, much like the Grizzlies. Like they started in the play-in tournament back in the day, and those were their first important games. And then suddenly that was a springboard to getting into the playoffs. And suddenly they're the number 2 seed in the Western Conference in back-to-back seasons, right? They took that experience in a win or go home game. They figured out what it's like to actually play in games with serious stakes and built from there. So there is an advantage in just getting into the 10th seed and playing in a game that really actually matters and matters for the players, everybody to see how they respond when the spotlight is the brightest and to figure out what you're going to get from your coach and what to expect from your coach in dire situations where you got to figure out something on the fly. So, as long as OKC is competitive, as long as New Orleans is competitive, I think it's going to be an exciting game. And to me, it's such a hard one to call because either team, it feels like, could have the best player on the court and still lose. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is gravy time for the Thunder. Like this, there's nothing about this win or lose that's going to change the trajectory of the team or the franchise. With that said, what will your expectations be for next season for the Thunder? They're getting Chet back. Let's say the only thing they do in the offseason is they pick somebody at 12 and then like that's it. What would your expectations be for them heading into next season?
I think the goal for them would probably be a top 6 seed, which is asking a lot, but that would be a hugely successful season. Chet Holmgren is still going to be a rookie coming off a major injury next year, right? I think we're all expecting him to have a super impact once he's up to speed, but that will probably take a little bit. Not to mention he's going to have to adjust to playing in the NBA for a full season. So that's a big ask for him to come in and kind of fix the defense. Maybe that happens a couple of seasons down the line, but another step forward, I think, would be huge. Another 500 season would be big, and showing that it's not a fluke when you're a team that isn't sneaking up on anybody anymore. There will be more expectations heading into next season, but I think by winning a couple extra games, staying in the mix for the 6th seed late into the season, that would be a win.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, Trey Kerby, who's winning this game Wednesday night?
I hate to say it, man. I'm saying it in the wrong place, but I do think that the Pelicans being at home, having the experience, and likely having the size advantage as well, I think that's all going to matter in a one-game scenario. So I got to go with the Pels.
Yeah. A lot of people are picking the Pels on this big Thunder play-in preview. That's okay. Home court advantage does matter in this. I mean, you look at like the home road splits for the Thunder with regards to just like shooting and all of that, and role players just play better at home. There's so much to it. And in just one game, it's just one game. Like you can't really, like, how much can you even scheme for one game? I mean, Isaiah Joe could hit 7 threes, or he could miss all 7 of his threes. And like, that could be the game. You just don't know.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, the 10th seeds haven't done so well thus far in the short history of the play-in tournament. Like you're saying, it's hard to go in and win on the road when you're a team that by definition isn't one of the all-time great teams in the league, right? Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out tonight. It should be exciting either way.
You should already be listening to No Dunks. If you're not, go listen to No Dunks. Watch them on YouTube as well. Just a delightful podcast, one of my favorite podcasts. I still have to pinch myself a little bit that I got to be your producer for a little bit. That was very cool for me. But thanks so much for coming on the show, Trey Kerby, and go listen to No Dunks throughout the playoffs.
Thanks for having me on, man. Talk soon.
Got Ben Golliver here to preview Thunder Pelicans. Ben, how's it going, man?
It's going well. How are you doing? Are you on pins and needles for this matchup, or are you looking forward to the off season yet, or where's your heart at?
Pins and needles for sure. Yeah, our hearts are still in this one, so it's exciting. It's exciting to have meaningful basketball in Oklahoma City again. It hasn't been that long compared to other teams that have been through this, so it's not anything insane, but it feels good to talk about basketball instead of just talking about what could be. We get to talk about what is tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I would say the Thunder and the Kings are probably the two teams that are playing with house money more than anybody in the Western Conference bracket. It's been a crazy bracket this year. The favorites have all enjoyed great health, and so everybody wonders, are they actually that good? Do they have another switch to flip? This chase pack of like the Warriors and the Lakers and the Suns, have been dealing with all sorts of stuff during the regular season, but they're also going to have the expectations that come with having superstar level players, and they're probably going to be favored in some of their series. And then in this play-in round, you've got the Thunder, who everybody thought would, kind of be around the Rockets or the Spurs, kind of in that conversation. And instead, for a while, they had a better record than the Warriors during the regular season. And now they're going on the road. So that just naturally says, oh, well, they'll be, lucky to win, or, they're certainly not going to be favored. They're the underdog. I think it puts them in exactly the position they would want to be. I mean, what an easy coaching dynamic for Mark Dagnall, right? It's like, nobody believes in us. Let's go shock the world. We're the underdogs. We got nobody over 6'10". Let's go do it. And I think for the Pelicans, their advantage would be, they were in this exact same spot last year. They were the 9 seed. They had to win twice to make it in the playoffs. They did. And they also did it without Zion Williamson. And so I think, national guys like me, where's Zion? What's going on? Chaos in New Orleans. Like, that's sort of the vibe. And I think when you're down there in New Orleans, it's much more like, well, he hasn't been there for months. They've been winning some games. Brandon Ingram is back, and they can kind of go forward and, just attack this challenge as opposed to being worried about a distraction.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, they have somehow forged an identity in the midst of chaos, which you have to credit Willie Green for that. It's gonna be such an interesting matchup, and it kind of all starts with like this Shea versus Bi, and like the two titans of these teams. And this is really Shea's first time to be on the national stage as the guy. What do you expect to see from Shea on Wednesday night?
Well, I mean, he's a cool customer, right? He's got the best Instagram game. He's got one of the best handles. He's one of the slipperiest guys with the ball in his hands to try to stay in front of him. I think you got a little preview of what Shea can do against the Pelicans earlier in March, I think, right? Where he had 35, something like that. And a lot of it was free throws. A lot of it was twos. It really wasn't a perimeter-oriented game. But, they spread you out and they want to get to the rim. One interesting thing I noticed with the Pelicans this year is, Jonas Valanciunas plays a lot of minutes for them. He had great health for them this year, and he had another strong season inside. But when they've played against the Thunder, they have typically gone away from him. They haven't played him huge minutes. His numbers and his minutes have come down. And so that should give Shea the opportunity to attack smaller bigs, whether it's Jackson Hayes or whoever else might be in the middle for them. And, if he goes nuts, and he's certainly capable of doing that, and he's great in the clutch, very trustworthy with the ball in his hands in late game scenarios, there's going to be a pathway for Oklahoma City to steal this game. The other thing I want to point out in terms of the Pelicans, if you look, they have the best point differential of any team in the play-in, and they have a top 10 point differential on the year. And it really shows through on the defensive end. Their defensive numbers are excellent. And I'm looking at their personnel saying, obviously, they have a couple good defensive players, but, Valanciunas, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, these are not guys who have, great defensive reputations. And I think that the numbers actually overstate how good New Orleans' defense is. They've had an inordinate number of blowouts this year, games they've won by 15 plus points. A lot of times it's been like Steph Curry sits out against, the Pelicans down in New Orleans, so they win by 35 points. So I think that's skewing a little bit how good their defense actually is. And, Oklahoma City's had a solid kind of average offense this year. And I don't think this is a scenario where you just look at it and say, well, the Pelicans' defensive ranking is so great, so Shea's going to struggle and the Thunder are going to struggle. I don't think it's quite that simple. And then just quickly on Ingram, to me, a disappointing season, largely because of the injury issues, kind of flatline numbers from an efficiency standpoint where he was in his first All-Star year, which was, years and years ago now for Oklahoma City. He's getting pretty deep into his career as a highly touted number 2 pick to have never won a playoff series and really only have a couple playoff wins under his belt. But he has been really strong since the All-Star break. The scoring number is up, the volume is up, and he does it the same way he's always done it. Tough twos. I call him a Noah's Ark player because he scores 2x2 rather than 1s and 3s, right? And I think that's what he's looking to do. He's been in a nice groove recently, and that's going to be a tough defensive matchup for the Thunder. But in general, New Orleans' offense is not that impressive. It's kind of clunky. They miss Zion a lot as a connector. They don't have a ton of great distributors and guys who get other people into the offense. So it becomes a lot of Brandon Ingram's turn, then CJ's turn, then Brandon's turn again. So that's what you're looking for, I think, from a defensive perspective if you're the Thunder.
Mm-hmm. How would you defend BI? Would you just throw Dort at him, or are you looking for more length? What do you think would bother him?
I mean, this might be a controversial take, but I would single cover him with your best defensive wing. And if he beats you, so be it. Because I think that the efficiency numbers there typically for him are not incredible. He typically needs a number of shots on his best nights to kind of really get going. And the person who I would be concerned about if I'm New Orleans is Trey Murphy. Now, Trey Murphy has been scorching hot from outside. Here over the last couple of weeks, had a really strong close to the season. He's their best outside shooter. You don't want to get into a situation where you're so concerned about preventing a Brandon Ingram mid-range pull-up that you're giving Trey Murphy a wide open quarter 3, right? That's how you can kind of get in trouble. And you also want to be careful in transition as well. Trey Murphy's got a nice knack for getting himself open in those kind of opportunities, and then he's got a quick trigger. I mean, if you give him 2 steps to get his feet right, he's going to really make you pay with that. So my defensive approach would be, let Brandon Ingram go nuts with the kind of shots that he wants to take, contest him as much as possible, keep him off the foul line if you can, and then just live with it. And if he scores 45 to beat you, oh well.
So the Pelicans have a ton of experience as far as getting to the play-in. They have Jonas Valanciunas has played in every possible play-in game that he can. Does that matter, or is it just this is just one game elimination, and Isaiah Joe could have 7 threes tonight or tomorrow night? How much does the experience matter here?
Well, I think it's a factor. I thought it was more impressive actually when New Orleans last year went on the road and won a road play-in game. I think it was against the Clippers. Now, of course, the Clippers didn't have Paul George, and there's extenuating circumstances there. But I think, it's kind of this college atmosphere, one and done, all the pressure. You're right. You're kind of at the mercy of some random role player going crazy. Kind of like we saw in the women's championship game, right? For the LSU guard comes off the bench, is hitting all these threes, and Iowa has no idea what to do. That can happen in a play-in. There's no doubt about it. But I think that there is some benefit to having the experience. But I think even more so, there's a benefit to having home court. Throughout the play-in's history here, 3 years, typically the home teams do quite well. The higher seeded teams do quite well. It's not that they're undefeated. It's possible to pull the upset, but it has been a real advantage. And I think down there in New Orleans, they had great crowds in last year's postseason. So I would expect a pretty solid atmosphere for this play-in game as well. It's going to be a tough place to play. Everyone kind of feels it. It feels different going into the gym at these play-ins. I've been to a couple of them. Last year or 2 years ago, rather, it was the Lakers and Warriors, Steph versus LeBron. And that was coming out of the pandemic where it was really hard to have full stadiums and amazing atmospheres. And I remember that being one of the better crowds that we had seen in months and months for that game. So I'm sure tonight, no Rudy Gobert, McDaniels for Minnesota. I think you're going to see the Lakers fans kind of frothing at the mouth to get a win, and that's going to be pretty standard across these play-ins.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I really can't wait for tonight. So win or lose for the Thunder in this game, and if they win and they lose Friday, none of it really matters that much for the future of the franchise. I'm just curious your thoughts on where this team is going. Let's say they kind of just hold steady. They draft somebody in June, and they did that. This is their team. What are your thoughts on just their future going into next season?
I think the best way to judge that is to rewind and think about what this could have looked like right now had this season not gone so well, right? I mean, we easily could be neck deep in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander trade rumors, and he's obviously never played into that. But if they had won 18 games this season and there hadn't been the progress, and they had Houston's season, right? It was going to be a natural talking point of Chet's coming back. It's going to be Chet's team. Should they be playing for the draft? Should they be shutting all these guys down? I mean, it could have gotten pretty ugly pretty quick. It's a credit to Oklahoma City's team culture, to their coaching staff, and also to their players for understanding that there was a lot to be gained from playing hard this season, staying together, and doing it, like I said earlier, with such an undersized team. I mean, that is a grueling deal night to night. And for them to be able to, get as many wins out of this as they have has been a huge step forward, in my opinion. So I do think there's teams like Chicago or Toronto, veteran groups. They've kind of had past playoff success. They get into the play-in, and it's a disappointment. It's like, why are we even here? And maybe they're not even going to come out and play super hard in those games. I think the complete opposite for Oklahoma City. I expect max effort, do whatever they can to kind of shock the world. And even if it doesn't work out, even if they do lose to New Orleans, there's no shame in it. And they can say, we took a very clear step forward. This rebuilding, retooling program has shown demonstrable progress. You're getting Chet back. You're going to have some nice, probably more draft picks, and you're going to have some flexibility cap-wise if you want to make some moves this summer to get a little bit frisky in trade scenarios as well. So I think it's a great spot for them to be in. It's fun to watch these guys grow up, and to me, I think the most important piece of it, not only is Shai having success, but he doesn't have the wandering eye. He seems very comfortable in the leadership position. It's not this, where can I go team up and, try to, take my game to the next level. And I think it's real valuable for him, as you mentioned, to get the stage, right? To have everybody talking about him. And if he goes for 40 on Wednesday night, a lot of people are going to be talking about him. And it's certainly a possibility. I wouldn't bet against it.
Okay, Ben, it's time to make your pick. Who you got Wednesday night?
I'm going to cop out and go with the easy answer, the New Orleans Pelicans. I mostly because of the home court factor, and I think the experience factor and matchups play to their benefit. The fact that they can be big if they want to and try to see if Valanciunas can hang, but if not, kind of downshift a little bit. I think that puts them in a good spot. But if I was a Thunder fan or a Oklahoma City follower, I would look to that New Orleans game against the Timberwolves where, all heck broke loose for Minnesota. Let's not forget which team crumbled down the stretch. That was the Pelicans. It wasn't the Timberwolves, right? And so that tells you they're beatable, and it tells you that it's going to take kind of focused, disciplined effort from your best players to kind of get over the hump.
Please go read Ben at the Washington Post. Ben, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Take care.
Okay, it's time to bring Tyler Parker into the show. We've had a lot of people who've had outside perspectives. We've even had someone from the opposing broadcast on the show, and now someone that has basketball feelings associated with the team is on Down to Dunk here to walk us through just how he's feeling, what he's thinking about this matchup, and I can't wait to dive in. Tyler Parker of The Ringer, thanks so much for joining us.
Dude, buddy, love to talk to you. Great to talk to you always. Thank you for having me. I can't believe I get to be on the same podcast as Antonio Daniels. I'm, going to take my shirt off after this and just sprint through the streets telling the people of Los Angeles that nobody can say shit to me anymore.
That's right. So how are you feeling? We are 30 hours away from this game. And how are you feeling? Like, what's your overall vibe heading into this, elimination game for the Thunder?
I'm sure that the nerves will get to cranking as we get a little bit closer. Right now, I feel just like it still kind of just feels like a house money sort of season. Like it's been. It would be so fun if they won. I think that it would just be a blast to see them do damage, and I think it's absolutely possible. But yeah, right now it's more just sort of like I really feel like it could go either direction. I think Shea's the best player in the series. I think that they are a bad matchup for the Thunder. But yeah, it's mainly just sort of a kind of like very interested to see how all the guys respond in a situation like this. Not just the players, but I'll be fascinated to see how Dakhil handles his rotations, like what all that looks like. Just, it'll be exciting to see them, kind of in a new context now, operating in a real deal must win will be it's been a minute, so it'll be fun to see what that's like.
So give me your top 5. I believe in this player in a play-in situation, guys, on the phone.
Okay, Shea.
Yep.
The one. Got my top 5 in a play. It's what's funny is like I feel that I have faith in these guys, and then you ask me that question and I say Shea and I'm like, all right, now what?
Where do I go?
Now what do I do? I mean, I'm all over the map with Lou, sort of as always, along with I would imagine a good percentage of the rest of the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you say in one of the Dream Team pods, I forget which, that, there's a world where he's 1 for 8 from 3 and there's a world where he's 5 for 8.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. If you told me that every 3 that Lou took was going to be from the corners, then I would have no problem putting him, somewhere in that top 5 most trusted guys.
Yeah.
If he starts to feel disrespected and like he's going to come out firing and playing confident and is taking a couple above the break threes and, maybe tries something fun on a reverse or something like that, and smokes it off the rim, then I'm going to start to get pretty nervous and move him pretty far down that list, Andrew.
Yeah, I know.
But that said, I'm sure that he'll, find a way to somehow play 50 minutes in the game.
Yeah.
And Ingram is one of those guys that I think it's just a rough matchup both directions for the Thunder. Not that it's unwinnable at all. but just, Ingram is the type of scorer, that kind of length. Like, it's not really, you could have Durant on him and he's not really even going to be able to contest his shot in any real threatening way. Like and Ingram's been on such an unbelievable tear to close out the year, not just with the scoring, but with the playmaking. That's gone up a level, it seems like. And so that it terrifies me that, Lou's just going to have his hands full in that way. I'm sorry, I'm going way off base of your question, Andrew.
We're still at one player. Top five players.
I honestly weirdly think I have a lot of faith in Dub.
Okay.
There's something about him. I feel like I'm in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
Giddey would have to be in the top 5, I think. I have no idea how he's going to respond in this game. I'll be so interested to see how he shoots, how they guard him. Yeah. I imagine that him and Lou are going to have plenty of opportunities to take open jumpers. Put Giddey up there. Man, you know what? It's so weird. It's so weird to have faith, to have some faith in Jay Will, but I kind of, for some reason, like every sort of big game that's happened, I just kind of keep going back to that Laker game, how much he showed up there even. And like, he has like a gamer quality to him, and he's young enough and kind of oblivious enough that I could just, for some reason, he plays a solid brand of ball. He's not out there to make a bunch of mistakes, really.
Mm-hmm.
I have faith there.
One more.
Man, who's my last guy?
So I've got Shea, Giddey, J-Dub, Jay Will.
Am I going to say Isaiah Joe?
I don't know. Are you?
I think I might say Isaiah Joe.
Can you just not get? You just can't get down with Dort's like shot selection, or is that where it is? I have a stat for you on Dort. So in 39 games this season, he took 6 or more threes.
I know the record's disastrous when the threes get up over a certain number.
So they're 18 and 21 when you take 6 or more threes.
Oh, I'm wrong. Okay.
You know what that tells me?
That it doesn't matter?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay.
That made me feel a little bit better when I looked that up this morning, because I thought the same thing. Because I thought, okay, here's what's going to happen. The Pelicans are going to load up on Shea.
Yeah.
Certainly.
They're just going to throw doubles at. My biggest concern is the length behind the initial length. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like there's just so they can throw him a lot of different looks. I think they're going to double him at funky times. They'll run at him early possessions, late possessions, middle possessions. I think they're going to just kitchen sink it. But yeah, no, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that they're going to leave those guys open, and they're going to say, hey, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, if you can beat us, we'll give you credit, but we don't believe you're going to beat us. And so how do those guys handle it? How does Mark handle it? We know how Billy handled it in the playoffs in Game 7 when it was basically just Lou Dort standing over there all by himself.
Keep firing.
And it's just like, hey, he's open. Let's dish him the ball. And
right.
How do the Thunder adjust when that happens? Because it's going to happen. Do you pull him off the court? The problem is the Thunder are just in this tough space where Lou is easily their best defender.
Yeah.
He's also can be a liability on the offensive end. He could also go 5 of 7 from 3. And then I think you win going away. I mean, it's a dilemma. And I think that Mark's going to play him 40 plus minutes, but I just don't know which direction it's going to go.
I'll be interested to see how they use Lou offensively. If they do try to do anything a little, like maybe they keep him in the dunker spot a little bit more often. Maybe they space Jay Will out a little bit more. Maybe you kind of, do the old Dre against the Warriors kind of thing in 2016, where all of a sudden you've got him just, you're maybe it's not that every time, but there's just there's enough of a different flavor there to keep defense is guessing. You get him downhill and you hope he makes good decisions, that sort of thing. But I mean, I'm with you that in terms of defenders that you trust the most, it's him far and away. I think that when it's not Lou on him, I think Dub's going to get a lot of that. Yep. And, that if Ingram hadn't been playing so well, I think I would pick the Thunder kind of going away. His stuff that he can do in isolation is worries me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without a doubt. Which players outside of Ingram are you most worried about? Now, Jose Alvarado, there's a report today that he's not going to play.
Right.
He'll be able to play within a week. He would have been on my list for sure. He was a guy that played a huge role for them throughout this entire season. But who are you most worried about? I mean, obviously Trey Murphy is probably at the top.
Yeah, I think offensively, he's the guy that just is like, you always have to be aware of McCollum just because he's kind of been through the fires before and can obviously get hot. He hasn't been playing that well. I mean, Murphy's been kind of the other guy with the juice there offensively that's kept them, cooking here, without Zion, like as he's benefited from, not just more eyes being on Ingram, but Ingram's improved playmaking and stuff. He's looking for, and they do a good job, trying to find Murphy. Murphy scares me for sure. I don't know what to. Valanciunas hasn't really hurt them too much. In at least in matchups this season, it's you could tell me they're going to do the thing where they come out and really act like they're going to feed it to him and give it to him on the first 2 or 3 possessions. And then they just, forget that he exists they got what the Thunder used to do to Steven Adams or something that wouldn't, it wouldn't surprise me. It also he's in terms of guys who have been there and won't be scared. He's one of them. And, if I looked up and he had 20-15 at the end of the game, that wouldn't exactly blow me out of the water. They're an interesting case because they're just, since we just saw them kind of in the exact same context, so you have some sense for how they're going to go. Seems like they're going to play 8 dudes. If Shea's just absolutely raking out there, maybe they throw Daniels out there to just try to give him some kind of other fresh legs look. Who knows? But it seems like they're going to play 8 guys. They play Richardson 29 minutes in that last game, and JV only gets 21. The Thunder are, Daignault. It doesn't hit me how much of a wild man Daignault is as far as how he handles his rotations until you start getting into these sorts of things where you're like prepping these 1-game scenarios in your head. Like, okay, well, what's he going to do? How are they going to play? You could tell me that Jay Will's going to play 30 minutes and that wouldn't shock me at all. You could tell me that they just largely play without a center for almost the entire game, and that wouldn't shock me at all. And I don't know how. I don't know if they keep JV on the floor there or not. It would just depend on, I guess, if the Pelicans perimeter guys agreed to actually throw him the ball. They don't seem to do that too much.
Yeah. Who's the player that you're most scared that Mark is going to play in this game?
That's a good question. Who am I most scared that he'll play? Nothing against him, but maybe JRE.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's not I don't want to call him like a lost cause or anything. It just seems like maybe just like a lost season in terms of on court kind of progress. Like I don't want to see, if he put Poku in there, my heart would go into my throat and I don't know what I would do. I might pass out, and I don't know how.
Against league rules to let him in the game tomorrow.
It would honestly it might be the end of me if he did that. Maybe out of glee or fear. I don't know how I would react in that situation. I think. But is that unfair to JRE? I don't know. What's your answer there?
Yeah, I think Jeremiah is one of them just because it's like, really? That's the direction that we're going? Like, just play Wiggins more, please.
That's kind of my thing. I think that's kind of what it is, right? It sort of shows like, well, hey, like you have some imagination here. Don't just start like, running off tackle here every time down the field. Like let's actually open it. I think that's a good call.
It's like going to the best Mexican restaurant in the United States and ordering the cheeseburger off the kids menu. Right. And you're just like, really? Like when they hit the table, you see all this like just ridiculous, like colorful, like delicious food, and then like just these like 4 mini cheeseburgers hit your plate, and you're like,
the fries are like potato wedges. They're not even actually fries.
Yes, you know what? And there's a chance that they're good. There's a slight chance that is a good little burger.
They probably are. They're probably really good, but it's not what it's not. I'm not gonna write home about the meal.
No. Yeah, that's Jeremiah for me, at least in this moment today. Maybe that changes next year. I don't know.
I hope that in terms of like, bench dudes that he gives a shot to, I hope that Wiggins gets serious run. I hope that Joe gets, the Thunder need Joe out there, like, especially in a game like this, like they're going to need somebody out there who can knock down shots and who might actually get guarded like he's a shooter too. You know what I mean? And like I think he's huge in games like this. I have no idea. Trey Mann's one of those, like it would both shock me to see him play at all. And then if he just came in and let the first thing go that touched his hands and it went in, that also kind of like, he has that kind of anything goes sort of vibe to me, where like, it doesn't either direction. I'm not like blown away, but yeah, I think those are the guys. I mean, like, would you think he's going to play Usman at all?
I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if he played Us any minutes.
It would shock me if it feels like an 8 guys kind of night, and then that maybe you give some kind of
Waters might be like the 9th guy. If they're gonna play somebody else, maybe Joe doesn't have it going. Like, okay, well, let's just throw Lindy out there. Let's get him a couple threes.
Yeah, see if he's got it.
Shot goes in, I think it's like, all right, we're going with Lindy, because the thing about Lindy is he's just so much bigger than Isaiah.
Yeah,
and he can defend a little bit. I still think Joe's going to get the first crack at it, but if Joe doesn't have it going, I think they'll give Lindy a shot at trying to make something work.
I keep like Isaiah Joe's kind of the new guy where I'm trying to figure out how good he actually is compared to just how surprised I am at his consistent effectiveness. And I'm like, because there have been a couple different times this year where I've like been moments away from just making wild, proclamations on Twitter about Isaiah Joe's, stellar future. Because he's starting to do some stuff off the dribble lately that is really interesting.
I know.
It's like pace, feel kind of stuff that's like, you see his brain slowing things down a little bit too. And so I don't know what to think. It's not like he's going to get to run a bunch of pick and rolls whenever everybody's healthy, but just he has that in him, and that he's not, you need him to be a good shooter, but that he could also, bounce, do something interesting, find a cutter, that sort of thing. I don't know. His development's been one of the really, really, sort of, obviously J-Dub is the exciting thing, and Giddey continuing to develop, and Shea taking the ultimate leap and everything. But it's been such a joy to watch him.
Okay, Tyler Parker. Nope. There's the music. There's the pick
thing. This says check Gil's water and take him out. So I should go take our dog out.
Before you take your dog out, make your pick. Pels or Thunder Wednesday night.
I won't be able to come to Oklahoma for a little while, but I think I'm going to pick the Pels as much as I want to pick the Thunder.
Yeah.
Ingram is like, I'm kind of a real believer in Ingram now when he's playing like this. And I worry that they're not going to let Lou be as physical as he likes to be. I'm worried he's going to maybe pick up some ticky-tack things, and then, it's going to be Dub. And then, I mean, Shea could it would be fun to see Shea on Ingram just to see what would happen. But I don't know. He's playing so well, and it's there. And I don't know if I trust the overall shooting of the Thunder quite enough to pick them as much as I would absolutely love it.
Oh, it would be glorious. Go read Tyler at The Ringer. You got a book coming out in June.
Yeah.
You tell people about that?
Yeah, I got a novel coming out in June 13th. It's called A Little Blood and Dancing. It's kind of like a modern Western. It's coming out then. Worked on it for, started in 2015. So it's been a long time coming, but I'm stoked about it. And yeah, you can go on my Twitter and click on it. And, some nice people said some nice things about it. And, I'm pumped. It's like a comic Western tragedy sort of thing was the 3 words in the room. So yeah, hopefully that goes okay when it comes out.
Go support an Oklahoman and a Thunder fan, and buy his book, please go buy it. Tyler, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
I've got my guy Dave Dufour on the pod. Dave, I'm so glad that you're here with me right now.
Me too. I'm so glad that the Oklahoma City Thunder are in the play-in.
Man, how about that? They're actually playing games that matter now.
Think about where we were a year ago, and the narrative around the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
People exaggerating how long the tank was going.
Mm-hmm.
People really blowing it out of proportion. There were, we couldn't stop talking about them shutting down Shea.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Playing
playing games that matter. That's awesome. It's a great story. The NBA should really be highlighting how fast Oklahoma City flipped it around.
Yeah, they really should lean into that. But probably won't happen.
Well, it changes the narrative about tanking a little bit, right? Like if it's more about competent management can tank.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily bad for the teams or the league. What the issue is when you have incompetent management where a tank turns into what Philly did, where they were in the lottery for 5 or 6 years or whatever. Now, look, that worked out. They got Joel Embiid, but they could have probably had an okay team in the meantime, and they still haven't made a conference finals. So I just think, I really am. I'm just pumped that this team is competing.
Yeah. So what are the high level things that you're looking for in this game, Thunder Pels? Obviously, you have the Brandon Ingram versus Shea matchup. What are kind of the first things that you're looking for as they start to play this game?
Number one thing is Jonas going to eat?
Yeah.
Who is going to body up Jonas inside? That's the thing where OKC just doesn't have. They have no size. They don't even have any burliness, right? Like they don't have a 6'8" guy that can go in there and bang around a little bit. So I'm assuming Jonas is going to draw a lot of doubles. This team doesn't necessarily they're a late switching team, but I feel like they're going to send early doubles to Jonas, going to force those shooters, which the Pels don't have a ton of, going to force those shooters to make shots. So you're going to look for the double teams on Jonas. Can he find CJ? Can he find, Trey Murphy? Can he find Brandon Ingram out of those doubles? And can Oklahoma City force the guy that the Pels don't want shooting to have to, get stuck with the shot? So Herb Jones, Josh Richardson, who we talked about right before we went live, the guard depth for the Pels is going to be a major issue. Now, more so for a series than for one game. I mean, one game, CJ McCollum can give you 44 minutes if you need it. And Brandon Ingram is a hell of a ball handler. So they've got it for one game. But if, for some reason CJ doesn't have it or Brandon doesn't have it going, it's going to be a tough night because I do think that they can bother Jonas inside if they send enough bodies. I mean, they've got length and they could disrupt passing lanes, but Jonas is big. And that's You can't teach big. So, if he can power through double teams and get some buckets, draw some fouls, put some of their, wing guys that are coming to double in foul trouble, it could get real late, really early. So that's the only thing right away. I want to see what are they doing with Jonas. I expect him to get paint touches immediately in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Thunder have done a pretty good job traditionally against that, where they just kind of swarm those guys and 2 or 3 to the ball and make Jonas make decisions, which, if you try to do that against Jokic, you're just setting yourself
right. You're toast
for failure.
Yeah.
To do it against Valanciunas, you might be okay. I think that's partly why they've had to pull him off the floor. I don't think he's closed many games for the Pelicans against the Thunder, but if he can stay on the floor, if he plays, if at the end of the game you tell me that he played 30 plus minutes, I might be able to tell you who won, just because he's going to eat offensive boards, and that's going to be tough for the Thunder, because I think that they don't like to take a ton of threes. They have a couple good 3-point shooters, but they like to get in close to the rim, which just lends to Valanciunas being able to get offensive boards. So that is a very intriguing portion of this. Who on the Thunder outside of Shea? I think Shea is going to bring what he's going to bring. I think he's going to score 30-plus points. He's averaged 33 points against the Pelicans. No matter what, I think he's going to find a way, whether they get to the free throw line or just get into the mid-range. But who else do you expect to step up for OKC?
It's got to be Josh Giddey. I think Jalen Williams, we pretty much know what to expect. I think he's probably going to have 20 in this game. I think that he's going to have his scoring load. So that gives you 50 right there. There's Shea and Jalen. I think that they're pretty much known quantities on the offensive end at this point. But Josh Giddey is going to have to hit some shots. The Pels, this is the playoffs. And what happens is teams just adjust. They're not going to guard him on the perimeter.
Yeah,
he's hesitant to shoot, and they're going to lean into that. And they're going to hope Josh Giddey beats himself.
Yep.
Versus him just taking shots. They're going to hope that he sits, holds the ball like he can sometimes do when he's open, and runs time off the clock. And that's going to stall out OKC's offense. So I think Josh Giddey needs to just take those shots when they come. When they're open, don't hesitate. Just in rhythm, get the shot up. This is the killer for PJ Tucker in the playoffs, is that he becomes hesitant to shoot. And I don't want to see Josh Giddey do that. I don't want to see him dribble out of open shots, dribble into handoffs and things that he likes to do when he doesn't want to shoot. He's got to shoot. It's like Draymond. I don't know if you've noticed the last month or so, Draymond's been, same way he was early in the season, left open, but he started taking those shots. Yep. I think Giddey's got to do the same thing.
Yeah, without a doubt. How much does experience help with this? Because the Pelicans have experience in the play-in.
Right.
Willie Green has coached.
And playoffs.
Yeah, they've coached. He's coached playoff and play-in games. Mark Dagnall has not ever coached a playoff or a play-in game at any level. And so how much does that matter? Or is it because it's single elimination, it's just like, okay, whatever, like anything can happen.
Right. I think this is the beauty of single elimination basketball. This is why I've been the play-in evangelist. It's why, if the NBA did a real tournament, it could be cool. One game is a kitchen sink game. In baseball, it would be like, all right, Andy Pettit is not starting the game. I'm a Yankees fan, but he's available to come in relief if they need him. That's the kind of game. So Shea has to be prepared to potentially play 48 minutes, if you want to try to win the game. You've got to put your best players on the court as long as possible. So as long as they're throwing the kitchen sink, I just don't know. Strategy is a little bit out the window because you're only thinking about the one matchup. So you're not worried about showing your hand or showing off some wrinkle that you've got for them. You're going to use it. And so in a way, it's freeing. I've coached in single elimination games. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's real fun. It sucks to lose.
Yeah.
But it's fun to coach in. And so, for these guys, I'm sure that they've got a hell of a game plan. this is one of the best coached teams in the league. So I don't know how much experience matters. I really don't, because you have it or you don't have it until you do. And then all of a sudden it's like you flip a switch and we decide guys have experience. And the only way to get experience and get those reps is to play those games. But at some point, everyone starts from somewhere. So I have no idea. I think it matters more for a series than it does for one off, matchup. But Hell, I don't know. You know, you might have some playoff tested guys that are out there like, wow, this is actually, it's a lot of fun, but it's no pressure. Who knows? CJ McCollum is probably going to have a big game. He just, it feels like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's definitely, he's been battle tested. You
Yeah.
know, he's not phased by a game like this. Okay, if you're the Thunder, how do you defend BI? What's your strategy?
Hope. You know, I mean, like he's going to get 30. He might get 40. He's just going to. This is why I think when we're doing analysis about this game, Brandon Ingram is a known quantity. So like I just know they can't shut him down. I assume they're going to shade help. They're going to try to, especially when he gets into the mid range, they're going to dig over. And they're going to leave. I expect OKC is going to leave some of these non-shooters that the Pels wind up putting on the court, just leave them open to go help on Brandon Ingram, similar to what we were saying with Valanciunas. And this is why I think, Valanciunas is sort of the linchpin for the offense. I know what we're going to get out of CJ. I know what we're going to get out of Brandon Ingram, but the Valanciunas question is the big one to me. But if I was guarding Brandon Ingram, I mean, I'm trying to get the ball out of his hands. I don't want him getting comfortable, especially early. I mean, he had 21 points in that game the other day on Sunday in the first quarter. I don't want that. If he gets hot early, I mean, if he has 12 in the first quarter, that's a disaster for Oklahoma City because his hot starts usually lead to solid finishes. And you cannot let him get comfortable. I would be very physical with him. Maybe put Jalen Williams on him. Let him use some of the beef that he's got on his body to just bother him a little bit, touch him a lot, and just try to make him uncomfortable. But it's Brandon Ingram, and that guy just doesn't seem phased very often. I don't know if he's, he might just be extremely relaxed, or it may be something else. But that guy he's not a care in the world when he's out there.
Yeah, he keeps the same face all the time. Like there's nothing that phases that guy. You're right. Okay, Dave Dufour, what's your pick? Thunder or Pels Wednesday night?
Well, my heart says Thunder because I really I think it's been a great story. And but my head says Pels. I just think that they've got, I mean, I don't know how much experience matters, but they've got more seasoned talent. Like you said, they've been there before. But having CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram as your two best guys is pretty good. I mean, that's slightly above Shea and Jalen Williams to me. Shea is all NBA. I had him on my all NBA first team. So a lot of respect for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but I think that the talent is on the Pelicans side.
Mm-hmm. Dave Dufour, we're going to listen to you on the Athletic NBA show.
That's right.
All over it. The Daily Ding, Nerdy She Wrote, producer on other shows. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to all of your playoff coverage.